welcome to the News Hour. Thanks so much for coming on. Remind us what the Berlin Wall signified when it was erected 60 years ago.
Well, as you've mentioned already, people remember the moment of hope when it came down, but really it was the moments of despair when this wall was built and when it became clear that the wall was combined with a murderous border regime that involved shooting at unarmed civilians trying to cross. When the first person was shot in the river here in Berlin trying to swim across, when one person was left bleeding in the center of Berlin for hours in the no man's land that was created by the former East German regime, people realized it wasn't just a physical construction. It was a murderous division that was meant to deprive the people of the former East Germany of the hope of escaping a regime that then lasted for another 28 years. So it's great the wall came down, but it's also terrifying to think how many lives it ruined and how long it stood.
And how did the fall of the Berlin Wall shape Germany and also the rest of Europe?
Well, I'm speaking to you from the center of Berlin, and literally 100 meters from here, the wall used to be, and some of the most daring escapes took place. So people really couldn't have imagined that a city of 3 million people can be physically divided in half. When the wall came down, of course, first you had the discovery of the two halves of the city. But remember, there was also the whole fortified border between the states, East and West Germany. And when that wall came down, and then a year later, you had the unification of Germany, one of the biggest experiments was in history, whether it was possible to unify two halves with such different systems, whether this could work, took place. And I must say, living in Berlin now already for many, many years, and seeing the United Germany as a prosperous, democratic, and stable country with all the difficulties, this experiment has been a success, and it would not have been possible without the courage of the people who protested in 1989 that led in the end to the opening of this murderous and inhumane wall.
And Gerald, what do you think the world has learned in the 60 years since the Berlin Wall went down about building walls to keep other human beings out? Because there are still so many walls around the world.
Well, you're right, and more walls are being built as we speak. And the trouble is that there are two lessons. One lesson which a lot have learned is that walls can work. I mean, this is the cynical lesson. Walls, of course, alone do not stop people, but walls with soldiers on them shooting at people can stop people. And that is a lesson that, unfortunately, many countries around the world have rediscovered. So the other lesson, of course, is the positive one, is that in the end, when walls come down, unimaginable progress is sometimes possible. You know, it's not just Berlin that was unified. It's not just Germany that was unified. It was Europe. Following the fall of this wall, suddenly the EU itself could expand, take in many more members, and create the biggest market in the world and the biggest border-free zone between sovereign states in history. Now, this was possible because the wall came down, but as I said, and as you hinted, 28 years of a wall that divided, and in the eyes of the people who created it, it worked for 28 years. Yes, it was a criminal project, as European courts have later found, but for a while it worked. And that is a rather sobering and depressing thought.
Thank you so much for your analysis and your time on this important anniversary. Gerald Knaus, chairman of the think tank European Stability Initiative, we appreciate your time.